Good morning. I'm Bill Funkhouser, President of the Illinois Retired Teachers Association, and I would like to welcome you to our virtual meeting for members who live outside of Illinois and any others who may have joined us this morning. Currently, approximately 15% of our members live outside of Illinois. The past 2 years have been a difficult time for everyone, including the IRTA. I'm happy to inform you that even in these difficult times, our association has continued to grow, while other groups have decreased in membership. Currently, we have 39,414 members. We continue to monitor what is happening concerning our pensions and health insurance, and as you will be hearing later from our legislative team, we are currently involved in a lawsuit over a reduction in funding of our health insurance fund. Maintaining our benefits is always the #1 priority of IRTA. IRTA is the only organization whose sole purpose is protecting our benefits. Last year, we hired a consulting firm, Brewer Pratt Solutions, to do a complete organizational review of our association. As a result of the review, they gave us a 30-page report with 40 recommendations for changes to keep our association viable in the future. Some of these recommendations are procedural and have been implemented. Others require changes to our Constitution. Over the coming months, the Constitution Committee will be studying these recommendations and come up with proposals to be presented to the Delegate Assembly in October 2023. In December, the Executive Committee took part in a 2-day strategic planning meeting conducted by Elisa Brewer Pratt, Chief Executive of Brewer Pratt Solutions. These 2 days were very intense and in some ways also very disconcerting. For example, to begin with, we were asked to imagine what it will be like in 2030. Put yourself in our place and try to imagine all the changes that will occur in the next 8 years. With rapidly changing technology, it is almost unbelievable what life might be like then. Also, we were encouraged to keep in mind that the person retiring in the next 5 to 10 years will have different expectations and interests than the current retirees, and that in planning for the future, we need to make changes in our association to attract these people to join. From this meeting, a strategic plan was developed, setting forth goals for the next 2 to 3 years. The Board of Directors, the Executive Committee, and the office staff will now be working on attaining these goals. There's good news concerning the IRTA Foundation. In January, the Illinois Network of Centers for Independent Living moved into our building, taking half of the 3rd floor. With this new tenant, we are no longer drawing on our reserves to make building payments. We are currently in negotiations with 2 other organizations to rent portions of the building. If these both follow through, we will have only 1/2 of 1 floor that will not be rented. That would mean that instead of taking money that could be used for our programs, the building would be providing additional money for our programs. The foundation is currently providing a total of $3,425 in monthly assistance to 8 retirees and paying the real estate taxes for another. Each year we give $6,000 in scholarships, $1,500 in each area, to college juniors and seniors who are studying to become teachers. In 2021, our Excellence in Education Grant Program received 259 applications with 65 grants awarded for a total of $37,251.21. During 2021, the Foundation fundraiser brought in $168,254, with the total from the fundraiser and all donations being $327,397. When you receive this year's fundraising appeal, please be generous so we continue our programs and perhaps even add to them. There's going to be an interesting year for the IRTA Political Action Committee. With the redistricting of the legislature, this may leave some districts with 2 incumbents and others without any. This could mean that there might be some districts that have 2 candidates who have supported us in the past, making it difficult to decide who we will endorse, and other districts with no candidate with a track record for us to go by. Keep in mind that our Political Action Committee is nonpartisan, supporting and endorsing candidates who support our pensions and health benefits. The primary source of income for the PAC is the $1 a month program. Sadly, the number of members participating in the program has been decreasing because more participants are dying than joining. In December of 2020, there were 5,526 participants in the program, and by December 2021, that number had dropped to 5,368. If you're not already a participant in the program, please consider joining. It can be done easily on our website at irtaonline.org. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to welcome you once again. I would remind you that at the bottom of your screen, you have a reaction button there. If you hear something you would like to react to, please click on that. And as we go forward, if you have a question, you need to click on the raise your hand there at the bottom, and you will be called on one at a time to participate. So at this time, if there are any questions, please raise your hand and we'll try to answer those for you. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time. So I would like to give you a couple of bits of information. Our Director of Membership and Marketing, Nathan Mihelich, has been putting out an e-newsletter recently. You should have gotten one yesterday. And in this, you would find that on Friday at 1 o'clock Central Time, we're going to have a networking happy hour. Please feel free to join us for that and take part, interact with others. As you join it, there will be an option there for what's called speed networking. If you choose this option, you will be randomly paired with one other person for a 5-minute conversation, then move on and pair with someone else. In the past, when we've used this, I found it very interesting to get to know people I wouldn't have met otherwise. And so it's a fun thing to do and very interesting. So please join us and take part in that. Again, I see no hands raised for questions. So moving forward, I would like to introduce to you our Executive Director, Jim Bachman, who will be talking to you about the lawsuit that has been filed on behalf of you and our entire membership concerning the funding of our teachers' health insurance. Jim?
Thank you, Bill. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with all of you this morning. Today I have with me Andrew Bodavis, our contract lobbyist, and Courtney Hayes, our government affairs coordinator. I'm going to start off this morning by talking to you a little bit about the lawsuit that we filed on January 24th. The association filed this lawsuit against the state of Illinois, claiming the defendants have violated the pension protection clause by slashing the contribution rates. A few things happened prior to this, just that led up to this filing of the lawsuit. Let me just go through those briefly. Back in June, the Department of Central Management and Services asked TRS to recertify the contribution rate for FY fiscal year 22, which is the current year that we're in today. And that rate was to be reduced to 0.9. And what it reduced was the appropriation from about 145 million down to 97 million. Not only does that reduce the state's contribution, but it also, by reducing the rate, it's the formula that actually says how much the active teachers' percentage of the payroll they pay. And that's what we're talking about, rolling it back from 1.3 to 0.9% of the payroll. In addition to that, it rolled back the employers or the school districts formula rate too, rolling it back from 0.97 to 0.67. So ultimately, though, this meant a reduction to the fund of approximately a little bit over $100 million. Upon finding that out and TRS actually certifying that amount, we questioned it. We questioned the action, the administrative action on how they did it. And ultimately going through the TRS, going through the Attorney General and us speaking to our counsel, come October 29th, TRS passed a resolution which revoked the June 25th action for the state. But at that same meeting, they made a determination to actually go forward and certify FY fiscal year 23's amount to 0.9% of the payroll again, putting us back in the same place that we actually were just a few months earlier, but that begins, the fiscal year 23 begins on July 1st of this year. And what we did is actually went out and hired an independent actuary to review the CMS's numbers as far as revenue and claims over the last 10 years or so, and give us, what they believed or what their thoughts of what was going on, and rolling back this contribution rate, how it will affect the fund moving forward. Ultimately, they came back in their report and let us know that they felt by reviewing the numbers that the fund would go default within the next year to 4 years. That led us to our the executive committee of the association of deciding that the most prudent action and most proactive action that we could take would be to file a lawsuit. And that's what we did on January 24th, and filed a lawsuit in Sangamon County in your behalf in protecting your health insurance moving forward. Once again, I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions that you might have. You can ask via the chat line down at the bottom, or raise your hand to go on live. Seeing none at this point in time, we'll move forward. And with me, once again, I would say that Courtney Hayes is with me today, and she's going to let you to give you a little background of what we're doing, both legislatively and PAC-wise this year. Courtney?
Hi, good morning, everybody. Like he said, my name is Courtney Hayes. I'm the Government Affairs Coordinator here at the Illinois Retired Teachers Association. Just a quick update. We are currently in the process of establishing a team of volunteers who are willing to participate in election activities. A few examples of election activities could be, but not limited to, meeting with your local legislator and familiarizing them with who we are as an association. Discuss issues we may have or concerns that we may have during the upcoming legislative session. Maybe attending a legislative fundraiser on IRTA's behalf. It could be something as simple as dropping off a yard sign to members in your area to show support for candidates the association is in favor of. Individuals who do volunteer will have the option to join the IRTA PAC. Joining the PAC is a great opportunity for members who are interested in being actively involved for fighting for pensions and health care benefits. This is a new change that was made to the committee by allowing members who are interested throughout the state of Illinois to join the PAC. With this change, we are confident that it will result in more members being involved. It will allow us to really spread the word on who we are as an association, and really encourage and hopefully encourage others to join as members as well. If you or someone you know is interested in hearing more about this position and would like more information on what your responsibility or what our expectations may be from you, please feel free to contact me directly at the office, and I'd be happy to discuss that with you.
Thank you, Courtney. At this time, Andrew Bodavis is going to give us a little bit of a legislative update and what the General Assembly is doing currently and what we expect them to do for the remainder of this session.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jim. Thank you all for giving me a moment. So the General Assembly is probably better to talk about what we're not doing. They've been impacted by COVID, as the whole world has been. And the last 2 years, we really haven't seen much activity coming out of the General Assembly. This year, we should have met probably 25, 30 days by now in a typical year. The House has met 4, the Senate has met 6. There's large part COVID. There's also been some weather issues in Springfield that have caused some of the canceled days. And then it's going to be a short session this year because of the change in the campaign election cycle. So they're actually planning to be done by the middle of April. So we've got about 2 months left. I would anticipate maybe another 25 days. Normally, we might anticipate 7,000 bills being filed and maybe 700 of them actually passing. And I see that number probably closer to 2,000 and maybe 30 significant pieces of legislation passing. The biggest thing that we've seen legislatively actually came from the governor's office. A couple weeks ago, he gave his budget address, which is a constitutionally required annual event. And as part of that budget address, he recommended increasing the contributions to the TRS fund, a $500 million, $240 million for TRS, $500 million total for all state pension systems. So this is probably a few days worth of actual benefit payments. It's not the $240 million that is maybe in and of itself so significant, but it is very significant that you've got a governor, the previous governors have always complained about not wanting to make the minimum payment. And for the first time in my 20 years of paying attention to this is the first time I've ever seen a governor come out and suggest making additional payments or more than the minimum. So that's significant in that I think it does so. There's some willingness and there being a commitment to fully fund our pension funds, as Jim was talking about. Unfortunate that same thought process hasn't been carried over to the healthcare, but on the TRS benefit piece, there does seem to be a commitment and a willingness to make that minimum payment and maybe find some additional money for it, which would result in getting to fully funded faster than 2045. So that's pretty much legislatively what we're looking at. Again, no real bills that we're spending a lot of time tracking. There's some debate about increasing how retirees can return to work during the teacher shortage. We've been involved in that, but really nothing major or driving on the legislative front such that it is.
I see that we have had 2 other questions concerning the lawsuit. And one is, has any other group joined our suit or filed separately? And at this time, no one has joined our lawsuit or filed a separate lawsuit. The second question, if the fund goes defunct, exactly would that mean to any individual retired teacher? Loss of health care or increased cost or? Well, once again, I am hoping that what our hope is that this is a preventive measure, that we do not get to the point that the courts will allow for the fact that the fund will go insolvent. It's preventive in the sense of making sure that the state provides enough funds that your health insurance, your guaranteed benefit health insurance is provided when you need it. I see that 2 hands are raised. Bill is the first, and then Kathleen.
Yes, Jim, I just want to be sure we point out to the people that there's no reason to get excited and panic and drop your health insurance. You need to stick with it. What we have is a good plan, and we expect it to be there. We're simply looking at guaranteeing it for the future and future retirees.
Thank you, Bill.
My question goes back to what the last person just asked. Worst case scenario, if you don't win this lawsuit, what could this mean for us? That's what I think I'm interested in hearing.
Well, I think, and it's hard to, my crystal ball is somewhat blurry these days, but, if we were to lose the lawsuit, I truly believe that the only thing that the courts would say at this point in time would be that maybe that we're there too early, that we haven't proven harm to any member per se, but the fact is that it's not to say that our information isn't true. It's that maybe we just haven't been able to prove harm at this point in time. So, I mean, that's the only thing I believe what the courts would do. And that would, to me, would put the state on notice that obviously this association is watching and with what they're doing. And also at the same time that they need to start looking now and providing enough money for the health insurance to continue to be there. I don't think outside of that, I mean, once again, I don't believe your health care is in jeopardy. It is a constitutionally guaranteed benefit. We're just trying to make sure that the funds are there to provide that benefit. Seeing no other questions or any other hands raised, I thank you very much for joining us today. And now I will turn it over to Larry Pfeiffer, one of our TRS annuitants.
Good morning. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate the introduction. I'd also like to point out that I believe that fellow trustee to the TRS board, Doug Strand, is participating virtually. And like all the other participants, we'd like to encourage you, if you do have questions, either like it was back in school, raise your hand, please, and ask to be recognized, and we'll try our best to address those questions as we go through, or to put it into chat. Excuse me, I need to probably warn you that I've got an awful lot of numbers to share with you today. But the good news is, and it's not always often the case where I get to put forth some really, really good news financially. So we're going to speak specifically on TRS finances. I also want to thank Dave Urbanek. You may not know Dave, but I sure do. He's communication director at TRS, and he helps me with speaking points. So that way we know what information should and will be put out that's fit for human consumption, public knowledge. We have a board meeting coming up, and there's a lot of information in the back of my head that I just can't release right yet because it's embargoed. So let's begin. In 2021, in December, TRS had a record high of $66 billion in which to work with. That's an all-time record of money in the system, and that's, again, good news. TRS managed $63.9 million of investments last June, the end of the fiscal year. That was an increase of $12.3 billion year over year. And that amounted to a 23.8% increase in that climb over that time. This investment returns for TRS, we saw 25.5% net of fees in fiscal year 2021. That was incredible. But that's not the best news. In the last 40 years, TRS investments, and that's 40 years is kind of important to me because I've been in the system both as an active teacher and an annuitant for almost 40 years myself. The rate of return was 9.5%, and it was 9% in 2020. These returns exceed our system's long-term assumed interest returns of 7%. And I want to pause for a moment because that's actually one of the jobs and duties that Doug and I have as trustees, is to getting all this information and helping with our investment committee and our consultants to determine what we anticipate the rate of return to be. We've been anticipating it at 7%, and that'll hold and has held, but yet over the long term, looking backwards, we've exceeded that. One other thing that is important, you may have seen this in the media. Illinois' pension system has been funded at 40%, and that has been consistent for many, many years, all the years that I've been a trustee. We are now seeing an increase because of our returns of 42.5%. Again, good news. Let's get down to something else that's kind of interesting. More numbers, though. Let's talk about memberships. There's over 400,000 members in the TRS system. And in round numbers, they break down into thirds. There's a third active teachers that are in the classroom today. There's about a third of them that are annuitants like you and I. And then there's another third that are inactives, folks that have been in the classroom, paid into the system, but no longer, for whatever reason, either job changes or changes in lifestyle, are not participating in the system, but yet they're inactive and need to be accounted for that. A few more numbers for you, please. Last year, benefits were paid out, and you notice this the first of each month, in a tune of $6.9 billion. That's increased over the last 5 years from 5.9 to 6.9 billion. Let me share a few averages with you. The average person that receives a pension from TRS is $61,860. The active teachers that are out there, the average is 77,577. My last comment on the actives versus the inactives and let me go back. Actives, inactives, and the annuitants like you and I, we're still an immature system, meaning we have more actives teaching than we do have folks that are retirees. I know you're getting a lot of numbers here, but I've got a few more that I'd like to visit with you about, please. Illinois is unique in the respect that our TRS investing policies require us to value and to seek out diversity in our investment, specifically women and minority owned. And I'd like to share that with you because this is really something that many other pension systems look towards Illinois for our success in this regard. In the last 5 years, the total of the portfolio that we have with women and minority owned business invest about $8.2 billion. And it's went from 8.2 up to 15.4 billion. So we're finding more and more high performing individuals and firms that invest your money and do it quite well. We have an aspirational goal that's set out by legislation that we should be striving for 20% of our total investments. And we've exceeded that and continue to exceed it. So again, lots and lots of numbers. I hope that where you're watching from, it's warm, you're doing well. At this point, I'm going to ask if there's any questions or if any hands are raised. I think one's coming in and Nathan's going to share it with me. Great question. And I'm going to broaden it up just a little bit because I've always said, as a member of IRTA, we have a voice, we have a conversation with our elected officials, and we need to be the biggest advocates on what the system does for us. Let me address it this way. You might want to share with family and friends that do live in Illinois or fellow teachers that do live in Illinois that we have a revenue source that amounts to $6.9 billion each and every year during the pandemic, during good years and bad years. That's a lot of buying power of $6.9 billion. So specifically to the question, I would reach back to those folks that you know are still in Illinois and have that conversation with your elected officials and saying, if this was a corporation that generated a $6.9 billion annual payroll, you would sure keep that in mind. So that would be my advice to you. And the folks that are in Illinois, share that number. That's pretty impressive. Doug, you have any comments? I'd like you to respond.
Oh, thank you very much, Larry. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to our members who are out of state, of which we have a lot of them in state. And just what you're saying is so true about the economic impact that our IRTA members have in the state of Illinois, plus the people in Florida and Texas and Arizona and California. It's very important that our members continue to increase our membership from 127,000 some retired annuitants to where I think Mike Schmidt, who is the state membership chair, said that we're about 39,000. I would love to see that they hit 40, 45, 50 down the road. The more members we have, the better organization will be. I know Mr. Bachman and the staff down there at Springfield has done a good job of keeping track of all the things that goes on in Springfield. And one thing I've said is, what Springfield can give us, Springfield can take away. So all of us need to be very, very careful of that. And I compliment Larry Pfeiffer at our meetings, which tomorrow I'll be running down to Springfield after this to get to the meeting for tomorrow. We noticed that shortage, and with the help of IRTA, has made that an issue that people need to be aware of. As we get older, and I am getting older after 40 years of education, I I want to make sure we have our health care. That's very, very important, not only to myself, but many other people, friends also who are retired teachers. Let's see, future growth is very, very important. If I'm going to be going around the state, as Larry and I do, I've always mentioned that with Mike Schmidt, the membership chair, and John Flaherty, the past president. I know our present president, Bill, knows that that membership is a very important aspect to keeping the IRTA strong. So back to you, Larry. I will see you in about less than 24 hours, I assume, depending on the weather. I hope my old Honda CRV makes it.
Well, thank you, Doug. Safe travels to you. And it is an honor to have you serve on the board with me. I believe we have one question that we'll try to take it. I think that's something that IRTA would be able to probably put together. Your voice is important, I guess. Let's not lose sight of that. Your voice is important, and you still are a stakeholder in the system. So as a trustee, I want you to be assured that I'm thinking about you in those warm places while we're in a snowstorm in February, but I'm also thinking about that first year teacher as well. You're a part of the system. And as a fiduciary, and that's what guides Doug and I, we have to make sure that the system is viable, strong, and is ongoing. So yes, your comments, your voice, those are important to us. But I think to that point, IRTA is going to be your vehicle to get those and be a clearinghouse for those. I found just personally, if I have a question, concern, I run it through IRTA and they give me answers. Great idea. Thank you for whoever posed that. Thank you for your kind attention. It's a pleasure to serve with you and for you. And I think my friend Bill Funkhouser is going to close us out today.
Thank you, Larry. That last question, I think one answer is, as Larry pointed out, you are a stakeholder in the TRS system. So you do have a voice, I think, and let those legislators know, even though you don't live in Illinois, you still have that interest there. Plus, it doesn't hurt to point out you have family and friends who live here who are interested as well in you maintaining your benefits. As we look at that again, as Larry pointed out, that's $6.9 billion that comes into the state economy every year through our benefits, our pensions. That's a lot of buying power, a lot of economic activity that takes place because we're there, because of what we receive. And so those are important things to keep in mind. And again, as Larry mentioned briefly, our IRTA staff does an excellent job of keeping us informed, answering questions. During the past 2 years, during this pandemic, the staff never fell behind in what they were doing, whether they were working from the office, working remotely, a combination of the both. They were there for us the whole time. Anytime you had a question or anything you needed, all you need to do is call and you'll get a person and you'll get your answer that you are looking for. So keep in mind that's there for you. Again, as we go forward, I hope this has been beneficial to you today, that the information provided has been important to you. And again, if you have comments or suggestions about these kinds of meetings, please let us know. Send your comments to the office. You can email them into the office. You can call. Either way, just let us know anything that you have and you would like. And again, on Friday at 1 o'clock Central Time, we will have the virtual happy hour interaction with people. It will be using what's called the AirMeet platform. And again, that speed networking is, it's 3 p.m. Central. He just reminded me, I'm in San Diego, so it's 1 p.m. for me. So 3 p.m. Central Time for you, everyone. So wherever you are, but keep that in mind. And as I mentioned before, that speed networking is something that is very fun to do. And also, again, interesting. Last year in one of the meetings, I got to meet with a lady who's in Virginia and we got to interact. Never would have had that experience if we hadn't taken part in this meeting. So please join in that if you get the time. Again, please let us know if you have any comments or suggestions. Again, if there are any other questions or comments, we'll take them at this time. If not, we thank you very much for joining us today.